Let's go!
Oh, for PLvsAA! What?
Do the Dries server passwords in the Black Ops 1 terminal exist?
Yes.
What? What? No!
Treyarch Zombies has to be one of the strangest game modes to ever hit Call of Duty. It's just a fun little mini-game that started as a passion project by the devs and turned into something else entirely. Just step back and look at its role in every COD it's in. The first map in World at War started as a secret unlock you got for beating the campaign. Then, after that map was well received by the player base, subsequent maps were released as DLC, even getting their own trailers alongside other MP maps. Once World at War ended, Black Ops 1 followed suit years later by reintroducing the mode for the second time in the series' history. But this time, players were given one unlockable map and another map available as soon as you boot up the game. The lore for the game mode also went from being exclusive to radios to practically combining itself with the plots of the DLC maps. The first DLC map in Black Ops 1, Ascension, involved the first massive side quest that ever could be done by 4 players all at once. Layer DLC did the same, with even bigger and more convoluted steps being introduced further down the line. It even finished with one of the most famous climaxes in the game mode's history. Earth gets fucking destroyed. Popularity for this one-off thing you could do in World at War skyrocketed even more than ever before. Just look at Black Ops 2. When you go to Zombies mode, you're no longer selecting maps from a slightly altered main screen. Now, you're in an entirely new menu. You have a rank, and you circle around the burnt earth to choose maps. There were also new game modes like Turned and Griefed, which were added to spice up the game beyond normal round-based survival. Custom matches were also introduced so you could skip the hassle of early rounds, or add extra challenge by turning on and off dog rounds. The story also fucking exploded. Characters directly tied to the overarching plot now conversed with you in-game, commanding you to perform a series of tasks normally hidden in games prior. I don't think you could even call them side quests at that point. They became so intertwined with every playthrough of the map that it'd be almost impossible to ignore them. And this became even more true when the map Origins hit. If the general Call of Duty audience wasn't aware of zombies by that point, Origins made them aware. It came so out of left field that the community went fucking apeshit, and with good reason too. Everything they knew about the series just got curb stomped with this one scene of 2 children playing with dolls. It was the biggest cliffhanger to ever hit people involved with the storyline. Popularity for this game mode became so fucking large that we even got to see an appearance of it in a game that wasn't even made by Treyarch. Just because people liked it that much, there came this attempt to capitalize on it. The continuation of the story in Black Ops 2 was only a year away, and you already have this hype train building up to these ridiculous proportions. Finally it hit. Black Ops 3 came out. And zombies practically invaded everything. The iconic Round Change song was put in the title screen to the game when it boots up, and there's even a moment in the campaign where you have to fight fucking zombies in a burning building. If you look at the game mode itself, you'll notice what looks like a complete overhaul too. Gobblegums, a new ranking system with an added prestige mode, customizable weapons, and even updates after the game's life cycle is supposed to be over, like custom zombies in Newton's cookbook. Look at all this shit. It's grown so much over these 8 years that it basically is the game at this point. And it doesn't even stop there. This iteration of the game mode has put the community in the most divided state I've ever seen it in for a long time. There were so many discussions about maps and how the game played that took place over the course of the 4 new DLC. Videos were made criticizing the new changes made to how the game handles its story and gameplay. Treyarch was basically under this microscope while every major Zombies YouTuber sat by watching it carefully. If you were involved with this side of Black Ops 3, you'd be in for this massive roller coaster of emotions flooding from both the community Reddit and the community on YouTube, especially when DLC 4 dropped. When that shit hit and people saw the ending to it, the community split harder than a fucking cell. And if you're gonna gain anything out of me screaming over all this, it's that this game mode was a huge deal. There's even an ongoing comic for the series as of the making of this video that's supposed to explain the events after Black Ops 2 came to a close. I'm sorry for basically recapping on 8 years of Zombies history, but I feel like it's important when talking about this part of the series. It's gotten so fucking big over every other game before this one, that this high level of popularity and expectations were bound to catch up with it. Which is why I think it's time I state my thoughts on all this. Black Ops 3 Zombies was mediocre. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't complete garbage. It did a bunch of shit better than Black Ops 1 and 2. In fact, I'd argue that it almost fixed everything that was holding them back in the first place. The only problem is that a lot of these fixes do more harm than good. It's not something I can overlook just because I like the game. The more I played it, the more apparent these issues became. I'd spend hours on end trying to get high rounds, and I started to see it more and more. What's weirder is that I'd go back to older videos by Zombies YouTubers who were willing to criticize the game, but the more I played, the less I agreed with. In fact, there were some videos where people talked about what made zombies good, and it just left me with the concern that they were the reason the game ended up like this. Now don't take this as me saying that I somehow know more about this game mode than they do. I just think that there's a lot to be said for this game and the ones before it that no one's bringing up. This video will hopefully serve as a way of using my opinion to bring up some kind of talking points in this community, but it'll also be a bit cathartic for me since I don't think anyone else is talking about this shit. With that out of the way, let's get into where I think this game fell short and why. In order to understand zombies' shortcomings, you need to understand the fundamentals of how every game's worked in the past. I'll start by getting some misconceptions out of the way. This varies slightly from game to game, so I'll clarify when needed. First of all, there are only 1 to 2 guns you want from the mystery box. This holds true for all of Black Ops 1. In solo, there are 7 maps where the only gun you need from the box is the Wonder Weapon. Here are those maps now. Of these 7 maps, only 3 of them actually involve you using the Wonder Weapon as your main method of progressing rounds. For the rest of the maps, Wonder Weapons are used as a way of getting you out of a corner. Now this is something I rarely hear said in the zombies community, so I should probably explain what I mean. Wonder Weapons in zombies are ridiculously powerful. They can usually either carry you to round 30 plus before they drop in damage, or carry you to the end of the game if their damage is infinite. The balancing factor for these guns comes in the form of limiting the amount of ammo each weapon gets. If they have a low carrying capacity, then you normally wouldn't be able to use them to basically cheese your way to high rounds. This is what led to the usefulness of traps. First introduced in Reupload on World at War were traps. For a couple thousand points you could activate a device that can insta-kill zombies on any round. With the introduction of traps, there's no need to use the Wonder Weapon to kill zombies aside from clearing your path if one of them gets in your way. But you may say that if you only spend points on traps and rarely use your gun, you're going to run out of points. This is where wall weapons come in. Unlike box weapons, weapons you buy off the wall can have their ammo replenished for around 500 to 4,500 points each. In the later rounds where killing a zombie with a gun is almost impossible, wall weapons are great for racking up points to be used on a nearby trap. This is why I said that you only need the Wonder Weapon from the box on solo for these 4 maps. The existence of wall weapons makes everything else pointless. As for Nocturne, Toten, Shangri-La, and Moon, there are no viable traps on any of these maps, so the only guns that will get you to high rounds are the Thunder Gun, Fractalizer, and Wave Gun. I'm not going to go into specifics for how those 3 maps balance this out, because I'm only here to prove that the Wonder Weapon is the only useful gun from the box in those 7 cases. Anyway, let's move on to the exceptions. These maps aren't exceptions in that using any gun you want from the box is viable for survival. Instead, they require you to get 1 gun from the box that isn't the Wonder Weapon. For Verrect, you only need the ballistic knife for mobility, since your primary source of damage comes from the traps around the map. In 5, you only need the crossbow because of its ability to attract zombies when upgraded. It makes it a great tool for getting out of close situations, especially with how tight quarters the map is. And finally, in Call of the Dead, you only need the upgraded FAMAS to kill George quickly so you can use the Wonder Waff to progress through the rounds. That's all there really is to it. Once you get your Wonder Weapon and Wall Weapon, you can just run circles until you get to the round you want. Seriously, that's all you have to do. When people provide you with the zombie strat, they'll usually give you a spot to run on the map and a method for running a route there. This is the core of zombies gameplay developed in World at War and established in Black Ops 1. Now, whether or not this system is functional is beyond the scope of this review, since I just think it's important to understand what the core gameplay of zombies revolved around. Yes, I know I ignored shit like controlling zombie spawns and pathing, but I don't think that's really important to the overall point I'm making. Anyway, this system was built off of in Black Ops 2 with the introduction of buildables. This isn't a review of Black Ops 2, so I'll only briefly touch on these new add-ons since they reappear in Black Ops 3. First of all, buildables. Buildables first appeared in Transit and, for the most part, were meh. The idea was that you could collect parts around the map and create new tools to fight zombies. This would have been an okay idea, except for the fact that they marked a significant change in how the game progressed on each playthrough. In Black Ops 1, the mystery box would almost always randomly spawn in different parts of the map. Sometimes it alternate between areas. This meant that every game may not necessarily play the same since your progress after you started depended on when you got to the box and where it was located. After all, you needed the Wonder Weapon from it, so spinning it was essential. But in Black Ops 2, some of the Wonder Weapons were buildables, so now you don't really need shit from the box apart from monkey bombs because the weapon you need was free to build somewhere across the map. Transit's a fucking dumpster, but its Wonder Weapon, when used correctly, could easily lead to high rounds. And this liquefier on Darius was this ungodly killing machine. Finally, I don't think anyone would argue against the fact that the stabs on Origins were the only way to make real progress on the map. Maps like Buried and Mob of the Dead didn't suffer as much from these issues, but were bogged down by other problems specific to those maps. In Mob of the Dead, the only way to get to the Pack-a-Punch machine was to go around the map in every playthrough and perform a bunch of mini-tasks to get parts for a plane that takes you to the Golden Gate Bridge. In Buried, after the patch to the Paralyzer, buildables were the only fucking way to get to any round above 30. You were basically required to build kill tunnels that involved you just sitting there while your portable traps did everything for you. In every single Black Ops 2 map, the idea of building the same thing over and over again every time you wanted to get set up became the norm. Parts would move around occasionally, but that's not really saying much. You were still required to build all these things if you wanted to make any progress on the map in a timely fashion. Aside from shit I didn't cover like the bank or boss rounds, the gameplay elements introduced / improved on in both Black Ops 1 and 2 set the foundations for Black Ops 3. Since the game is a sequel, I wanted to briefly look back on what came before it and give you context on what shaped my opinion for this title in particular. So with that out of the way, let's get into Black Ops 3. Where the hell do I start with this? Black Ops 3 Zombies has to be one of the second worst installments in this series' history behind Black Ops 2. I have over 700 hours on this game, so you can't say I didn't give it a shot. I got all the way past max rank and I played the shit out of every map. When the community was going crazy over each new DLC, I was there with them, so I think I can say now that this game just fucking shot itself in the foot. Almost every new thing it adds falls flat on its face. First of all, you can now double Pack-a-Punch guns. In the older games, the Pack-a-Punch machine's upgrades didn't really do much as far as damage went in later rounds. In this game, the devs added another feature to it that make upgraded weapons a bit more usable than before. They did this by adding elemental upgrades. These upgrades for the guns are as follows: Blast Furnace, Turned, Fireworks, Deadwire, and Thunderwall. Each upgrade has its own feature that gives your gun an extra power boost. Blast Furnace can kill large hordes of zombies in groups big and small if they're hit with one of the powered ammo. Turned can turn a zombie onto your side and give it the ability to one-shot kill any other zombie it comes in contact with. Fireworks creates a mini version of the gun you're using that kills anything near its AoE. Deadwire uses electric bullets to chain kill small groups of enemies at a time. Finally, Thunderwall acts as a weak thunder gun. I have to say, these upgrades left a strong impression on me. At first I thought they were decent when I started playing Black Ops 3. Now I think it's safe to say that these upgrades basically broke the fucking mystery box. These power-ups can insta-kill zombies on any round. Any round! So why use weapons in the box when you can just get a wall gun? By the end of the game, it'll just do way more damage than anything else. It'll have infinite ammo too. All you need to do is keep buying ammo off the wall when it runs out. There's even a map where the Wonder Weapon was made useful for once, but gets overpowered by the fucking wall weapons later in the rounds. Why the fuck did they do this? They basically just dismantled the weapon pool even more than it was before. Power-ups like Blast Furnace and Deadwire essentially fucking break the options for anything else. The only way you can balance this out is if your Wonder Weapons were better. And spoilers, the only good Wonder Weapons are on 3 maps! Second of all, Gobblegums are a thing now. They're basically this mode's excuse for microtransactions in a pseudo slot machine. The idea is that when you take the gum, you have an extra power up for your attempts at high rounds. Too bad there are only 4 fucking useful gums in the game. Undead Man Walking, Anywhere But Here, Alchemical Antithesis, and In Plain Sight. But wait, there's more! 2 of these Gobblegums are actually useful for Easter eggs in different maps. So if you're just playing for high rounds, the only 2 useful gums are these 2. But wait, there's more! Of these 4 Gobblegums I mentioned, only 1 of them is finite. Yes, you heard me. I can use these other 3 Gobblegums as many games as I want, which would be fine had Alchemical Antithesis not been a thing. This fucking gum is so powerful, it's insane! Basically, every 10 points you earn equates to 1 bullet for your gun. And yes, even for Wonder Weapons! It even stays active for around 60 seconds and can be used twice, which means that for 2 minutes, you can have infinitely regenning ammo. You can also get this as many times as you want on each map. There's no cooldown. It's so fucking broken, just look at this! I would be using an extremely rare weapon in the game, but as long as I have this fucking gum, I just get it all back. The way they combat this in the game is to have each machine you get Gobblegums from charge you more points after your first use on each round. You might think this is fine, especially since there's a cost for constantly spinning the machine. But just sit tight for when I talk about each map, because they managed to find a way to undo this attempt at balancing everything. Anyway, third, you can customize weapons now. Yeah, now you can add extra attachments to your guns. It's a good thing too, because I really wanted to customize most of this shit that I won't end up using in-game. The only usable guns are wall weapons now, remember? Glad to see I can change up those a bit too. Oh, and did I forget to mention that you can't customize the DLC weapons? I'd be too hard to gate it off from people who didn't buy it, right, Treyarch? I mean, just look at the
Oh.
Well, look on the bright side. At least these weapons are back in the first place, right? That'd be a shame if they were brought back and were practically unusable. Oh wait, I forgot they're all box weapons! Well, so much for that! Good job, Treyarch, we did it! Obviously, making general statements about the game isn't going to prove my point. If I want to show you why this iteration of Zombies failed, I need to explain where and why. In order to do this, I need to go through every map and explain what went wrong. Of the 6 maps in this game, I can only confidently say that one of them is good. That one being the Giant, and that map's just a port of Der East from World at War in Black Ops 1. Now where this game really fails is in its new maps. First of all, we have Shadows of Evil, and this map is fucking awful. The way you're expected to play it is retarded. In order to get Pack-a-Punch open, you have to go through a series of 4 rituals, and I'd really like to know who thought of these fucking things in the first place. All you have to do is run in circles for a certain period of time, then you can move on to the next area. Most of the time, in order to avoid a hassle, it's smarter to do these rituals on low rounds. In other words, you're going to be sitting around from rounds 1 through 3 walking in circles while you wait for the fucking timer to be up. Then you have to do a 5th ritual to actually open Pack-a-Punch. Why the hell am I required to do jack shit 5 times in a row just to upgrade my weapons? This shit isn't even fun! Just look at this gameplay. Look at how boring this is. Every time you play the map you have to go through this. And what's worse is that that's not the end of it. You also have to get the fucking swords and the wonder weapon, both of which have their own stupid bullshit you have to do. For the swords, you have to sit on the fucking trolley and travel to 2 locations on the map. On the way there, you have to mark down random symbols that appear in windows of shit you passed by. And every time you go to one location, you have to wait for the trolley to cool down. Jesus fuck, why? The most efficient way to do this is to do it all in one round. So I guess it's time to wait again! After that, you have to open a door and grab this egg. You then place the egg in 4 different locations on the map and fill it with zombie souls. Finally, after all that, you get the sword. Only for you to have more tasks because you're still not done! Now you have to upgrade it, and in order to do that, you have to travel to the parts of the map specific to your character, grab another fucking egg, and spend 1 round killing 1 or more bosses for 4 rounds. You can't do it all at once either. You have to spend 4 separate rounds on this. Only then can you get your upgraded sword. For those of you who have played this map before, you're probably shouting at the screen that whether or not you have these swords is optional. You don't have to do the sword quest at all. Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but that's bullshit! If you usually stop at round 30 when you play, I could see why you wouldn't be aware of this, but you actually want to go to high rounds beyond that, you need the fucking sword. Once you have it, you get 2 major benefits. 1, a weapon that instantly kills zombies when active, and 2, access to free max ammos when needed. The first point is self-explanatory, but the second point not so much. You see, after you get the upgraded sword, you're now able to start the Easter egg for the map. One of the steps to the Easter egg involves you defending a flag in multiple locations. After you succeed at defending it in one location, you're awarded a max ammo. This becomes absolutely essential when the rounds get extremely long and there's no ammo in sight. This little strat is also what invalidates the use of alchemical antithesis. There's no point in wasting your time with the gumball machines when you can just grab a free refill just by completing this one challenge. Another thing people who think it's optional need to be aware of is that with almost every new buildable added to the game, another mandatory task for the player gets added. The reason I don't spend the entire game running in circles with wall weapons plus double upgraded weapons is that it'd take way too fucking long. I don't want to spend 5 hours to get to round 40 when I could do it in much less time just by using faster strats. The only fucking solution to this problem I bring up is to make the game incredibly long and unfun, and I don't know about you, but I actually want to enjoy my experience on these maps, thank you very much. When the game adds all this inane bullshit, it becomes fucking ridiculous, especially when they decide to make the wonder weapon as unpleasant to get as possible. The least amount of time it can take you to get it is round 12. This isn't because it's super hard to obtain, this is because of how the developers designed their game. The only way to get 3 items needed to craft the weapon are from 1, killing a Margwa, 2, waiting for pods to grow, 3, waiting for a random drop that won't spawn until round 15 plus. The first part isn't that bad, but my god, if you read the words waiting for pods to grow and asked yourself, is he serious? The sad reality is that I am. There are these pods on the map that won't spawn the fucking part you need until round 12, so if you have everything before then, you're just forced to keep going until you can actually get the weapon. And don't even get me started on the third part, the fucking Xenomatter. The only good thing about this shit is that you can cheat the spawn by using the Easter egg step I mentioned earlier. Otherwise this shit is a pain in the ass to get. Its spawn rate is fucking low, and it can sometimes take you past round 20 just to get it to appear naturally. What the fuck is this? This shit isn't even hard to get. It's just this long fucking process of running in place until I'm allowed to actually enjoy the game. I wish I didn't have to use the wonder weapon either, but after round 40 the devs decided to make the traps fucking worthless. I shit you not, they become unable to kill zombie hordes beyond that point. You're gonna notice this shit a lot over the course of these next few maps. The devs decided to add all these stupid fucking hoops you have to jump through just to get set up. It's so fucking bad in Shadows of Evil that, after I hit round 50 on the map, I had no interest in playing it anymore. I just wanted to complete whatever minor goal I had and move on. Overall, this map would have been fucking good if they didn't shit everything up with how obnoxious it is to actually do anything on the map. What should normally be a smooth transition over the course of 12 rounds becomes this massive ass wait fest. The amount of time it takes can get even worse depending on when you get the upgraded swords done too. If you don't finish it early, then it could take even longer than it's supposed to just to get the fucking Xenomatter. God, now I'm pissed. It's like Jason Blundell thought the wait for Black Ops 3 wasn't enough, so he incorporated it in his own fucking maps. Why is this map considered the best out of the bunch? It's so fucking weird how it's held up on this pedestal when it's managed to not only be broken by design on release, but also get even worse when it's patched. If you want to know the big reason why this map eats ass, I can summarize it for you in 3 words. The Storm Bow. This map takes after Origins from Black Ops 2 in that you can craft 4 elemental weapons, and like Origins, there's one weapon that's better than the rest. Up until this most recent patch, the Storm Bow was the fucking ungodly weapon that basically broke the game. You could essentially get to a high round by standing in place and shooting it at the ground. With shit like Alchemical Antithesis and the fact that it has a massive ammo load once you get it, you're basically set for the entire game. This fucking thing was ridiculously powerful. In fact, it was so good it made using any other bows in the game absolutely pointless. Why bother when you have this absolute tank? Aside from being absolutely broken and ruining the weapon pool, the Storm Bow is a pain in the ass to get. In fact, all of the bows are fucking horrible to get. Every time you start the map, you have to feed 3 of the slowest eating dragon heads in history. This is just like it was in Mob of the Dead with the Hellhounds on the wall. And just like that map, it's fucking horse shit. Feeding the dragons has to be the most annoying process in the entire game. Every time I want to start the map, I have to do it. They don't eat the zombies quickly either. You always have to wait 5+ seconds before you can feed it something else. Zombies are constantly coming at you, so it results in you either sitting there, waiting for the dragon to be ready to eat something else, or you accidentally killing most of the zombies before it has a chance to eat them. This results in rounds increasing while you fucking sit there trying your best not to get caught in corners. Again, you're stuck on this long fucking process of just sitting in place waiting because it's the only practical solution to all this tedious bullshit. Not to mention, after you get the bow, you have to do the gay quests associated with it. For the Storm Bow, it's not that hard, but for some of the other bows, it's fucking retarded. The 2 in particular that are basically shit to do are the Fire Bow and the Void Bow. The Fire Bow involves a step where you constantly dump your ammo trying to hit these butt-fucking targets in midair. This has to be the most asinine shit I've ever had to do in this game. No matter how many times I do it, it's rare as hell for me to hit it on my first try. The reward for it is garbage too. The Fire Bow isn't as strong as the Wolf Bow or the Storm Bow, so what's the fucking point in getting it? For solo, it's completely worthless. The Void Bow is equally shit. The process to get it involves hoping to God that knifing a zombie over this small ass square in the ground won't take longer than necessary, which leads into this stupid ass quest to get this invisible guy's name. So you have to spend the next few rounds gathering these shitty letters that randomly spawn until you can spell out the name he gives you. This isn't as horrible as the Fire Bow, but the reward is, once again, not worth it. The only benefit the Void Bow gives you is that it melts panzers, the boss zombies for the map. But even then, you can easily just get rid of them with the Death Ray and an upgraded shotgun, so I hardly see any reason to use it. Once again, if your weapons outshine each other in almost every aspect, what's the fucking point in having them? None of these bows are acquired by random chance, so it's not like the mystery box. You can deliberately choose the objectively better weapons over the ones that suck dick. The only reason these extra bows exist is for co-op, and no patches will fix the unstoppable force you'd become if you had 4 players sitting in a corner with this shit. Speaking of patches, I brought up that the game became even more broken after it was patched. You see, I'm not the only one who realized the Storm Bow was basically designed by Zeus himself. The devs became privy to this and decreased the amount of damage you could do after round 40. So guess what the only solution is? Instead of cheesing your way to around 70 plus with the Storm Bow, you now have to do it with the Wolf Bow too! Yes, perfect! If one tedious bow task wasn't enough, now we get 2! I just love doing all this retarded shit mid-game. Man, it's so much fun. I also want to talk about the Specialist weapon because that's equally ass to get. You can't start making it until round 12, which is when the first Panzer spawns, so already we have another case of forcing me to fucking wait. Then, after you get it, the next bullshit you have to do is waiting for the rocket to fire, pushing a button, putting yourself into a secluded room with zombies, and trying to grab the part piece just before it despawns. If you miss it, you have to fucking wait for the rocket to fire again. I can't describe the amount of games I spent having to fucking sit and wait for the goddamn rocket to launch just so I can get this god-awful part. The only good thing about it is that you can manually make the rocket fire in co-op if your friend knows where the switch is. But again, all this shit piled one on top of the other just makes this map so shit to play. I essentially go through the process of getting the bows, upgrading 2 of them, and grabbing the Specialist weapon, just so I can stand in place for a majority of the game. And that's after the patch too! Before, when the map was broken, people touted this shit as one of the best. Half the wand weapons are bad, and there's absolutely no reason to use most of the wall weapons apart from a shotgun just to kill the Panzer every 5 to 6 rounds. But I'm being a bit dishonest here. I know exactly why this map was touted as being one of the greatest. It's for a reason I'm going to dedicate an entire part to in this review. So for those of you who thought I was glossing over this one key aspect of the map, I'm doing it for a reason. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I'll explain later. The main takeaway from all this is that the map once again consists of these long tasks that become really annoying to do after multiple playthroughs. And for a game mode designed around constant replayability in order to reach high rounds, not wanting to replay a map is a problem. Zetsubo no Shima is a bag of dog piss. If there's one thing I agree with the zombies community on, it's that this map is trash. What a mess! People have made entire videos on why this map eats shit. It's that bad. Let's start with the obvious fucking thing here, the challenges. This was the first map in the game's history to introduce challenges for the player to complete in order to get rewards for the map. But for some reason, these fucking challenges aren't optional at all. In order to upgrade the Wonder Weapon, which is pretty much mandatory for killing the boss zombies quickly, you need to complete all 3 challenges. This would be fine if they weren't fucking broken. The challenge where you have to kill Thrashers before they transform is so obnoxious to do that I just end up resetting the game every time I get it. If you don't complete this challenge before the latter part of the early rounds, you're basically fucked. There was one time when I played where we couldn't complete the challenge at all. We got to round 30 and just concluded it was impossible. And then, combined with the challenges, we have the fucking Skull of Non-Sapwa, the specialist weapon for the map. This weapon is stupidly good, and it has infinite ammo. It's an instant kill in any round too. It can kill anything standing in front of you, so it's basically a must-have. And true to form, Treyarch adds a shitload of bullshit you have to do to get it. 4 more rituals! Take these 4 skulls, put them down in 4 places, and then you get the actual skull you want. The problem with this is that the map is huge, and there's no fast way to travel around it. And not only that, you can't carry more skull at once. So every time you travel to one part of the map, you have to walk all the way back to the altar just to get another one. The only shortcuts on the map are located in the bunker, and even then it doesn't lead anywhere near where the altar is. So if you want to do the rituals in that part of the map, you have to go all the way there, then all the way back just to put down the skull. Every game you have to do this. God, I hate it so much. Why do they do this? There's no challenge either. It's just this boring ass run across the map. And if you're not doing these stupid rituals, you're fucking gardening. Yeah, you heard me right, gardening. It doesn't matter if it's part of the Easter egg or the challenges, you can ignore both and you'll still have to garden. All because of the fucking life plant. The life plant is the most overpowered shit I've ever seen added to the game. It essentially acts as a quick save for your character's loadout when you use it. Whenever you bleed out, you just come back out good as new. Whatever challenge this map fucking had basically disappears because I have infinite revives. It's also not hard to grow either. As long as I just spend a minute every round planning this shit and waiting, I'm bound to get a life plant eventually. I have around 60 plus runs on this map from just abusing the life plant. It's fucking OP! And if you're not doing this shitty life plant, you're also growing stuff for the KT4. The KT4, the dumbest idea for a gun ever. It's not that it's weak or anything, it's that the upgrade process for it is stupid. You have to do all these challenges as well as grow plants underwater, and each plant takes at least 3 to 4 rounds to grow. So guess what you have to do? You have to go to the same specific spot on the map just to wait for this plant to finish. I got so lazy at one point that I just gave up and camped underwater every round until it gave it to me. If you missed one water cycle, you have to start it all over again. So there's no reason to leave it and accidentally forget to water the goddamn water herbs. Now the process for every game involves me doing this retarded shit just before I can start my actual strategy for the map. There's this theme of needless bullshit and tedious tasks again. You can't enjoy the map until you do it. I'm gonna keep hammering this overall point until you understand. The more stupid preliminary tasks Treyarch adds to the map means that, for anyone who wants to get to high rounds in a timely fashion, you have to do them. You'd be an idiot not to. The best way to fix this issue would be to build off how the games used to work. Challenges used to arise on startup from the fact that you could down in 2 hits and the power you needed to turn on to survive was usually halfway across the map. Seriously, that's all they had to do. And hey, at least ZNS tried. And by tried, I mean ate the biggest bag of dicks it could possibly swallow. The way you turn the power on this map is so fucking ass. You have to travel to the left and right stations from the starting point and then open the bunker in the middle. Once again, there are no shortcuts, so you're running across the whole thing just to turn the power on. You have to kill zombies underwater until the game actually lets you activate the power switch. It's so dumb! Why am I jumping through all these hoops just for something as simple as flipping the power switch? It's not even a challenge either, since you can fucking break it by using anywhere but here to get out. Once you do, it instantly counts as a win. If you could exploit it like this, what's the fucking point in having players do it in the first place? God, this map sucks! Garad Krovi is just sad. Treyarch basically had everything going for it. Out of all the other maps that could have been added to Black Ops 3, this one has to have one of the most exciting opening sequences with the characters killing zombies to Ace of Spades. The theme of over-the-top action fits with the character it's based off of too. Nikolai in the original games was basically known to scream and drink vodka. He was the classic Russian stereotype, and only be fitting for his character that he had a map that was just as ridiculous. I'll be honest, this map would have been my favorite. Too bad Treyarch just had to fuck it up. So after ZNS, they decided to fix the power and make it less shit again. In exchange, they decided Pack-a-Punch needs to be almost as obnoxious as Shadow of Evil. Every run, you're forced to do 3 areas of the map and kill zombies until you get a piece of equipment that'll let you upgrade your weapons. Once again, you're going to have to run for these large distances across the map because there's no faster way to do it. The only way to speed up the process is to open up a door that would basically fuck you over for the latter half of the game. This means, once again, you're forced to go on this stupid fucking trek just to complete these shitty tasks. And after all that, I have to ask, what was the point in having the maps this large if you can't easily traverse them? I know they were trying to make Pack-a-Punch simple like how it was on the Giant, but when your map dwarfs it in size doing the same 3-step setup every game, it starts to turn into a major chore. And of course this wouldn't be a problem if this was the map's only issue. The next item I'm about to bring up absolutely rapes my enjoyment of Garad Krovia in every playthrough. The Gauntlet of Siegfried. This one fucking specialist item turns every game into this 20-round massacre of my time. I hate it so goddamn much! They couldn't have made a path to get it any more obnoxious. After you get to Pack-a-Punch, you need to shoot down an egg on the lower floor. Then you need to take the egg and put it in areas where the dragon shoots fire so it can get heated up. And already, we have our first instance of nonsense waiting. I'm forced to sit here every game, hoping I can get the dragon to hit the goddamn egg. So I sit it down, and hold a zombie doing nothing until the game lets me progress. Was there no better way to do this? Did they really have to add another point in the game where I'm just doing absolutely nothing? It gets worse when you have to do the next part. You have to kill zombies that have also been hit by fire. But wait! You had to wait 1 round for the fucking egg to cool down, which means when you do that part, you have to wait for the dragon again! You can't kite around one zombie, you have to lure an entire horde this time. And if you miss the fucking fire, oops! Guess more waiting for you! I can't stress how annoying this is. There was even a point after the map's release where Treyarch had to patch this shit so the dragon shot fire more frequently. And even then, it's still a pain in the ass. Okay, so you do that trash, what next? Well, after you complete that asinine step, you need to get the penetration kills. Which means you need a sniper rifle. So I hope you enjoy dumping money on the fucking box, because that's all you have to do at this point. The best way this has worked for me is to get the sniper early, but if you get the Ray Gun Mark III before then, your only choice is to put it in your second weapon slot. So guess what that means? The only one stroke of luck from the box where you get the wonder weapon you need results in forcing yourself to not get any other weapons because of the fucking sniper rifle. Of course this is just assuming you play a certain way, so I digress. It can just be really frustrating to have a weapon slot taken up by these shit guns I only use once. And God bless you if you have to roll the box for the sniper rifle after you did the previous step. If you don't get it immediately, I hope you have fun farming points every round until you do. If my point wasn't clear enough already, the time I'm spending on this stupid task starts to add up over time. The only good step in all this is the fact that you need to get melee kills. This shit is made easy since the shield has become overpowered in this map. What I really hate is the step after this, where you have to incubate the egg. This consists of you going through a lockdown segment, which ends with you waiting another round before you can pick the egg up. So again, we have another segment where I'm waiting! The Gauntlet of Siegfried is essential to playing the map since the Ray Gun Mark III shits itself at round 50. So this becomes your main method of damage. It also helps for conserving ammo so you don't have to rely on alchemical antithesis. And yet, every game, you have to go through these retarded hoops! After the first 2 times, I don't mind. It's just that when the more you play the map, the worse it gets. Again, these maps need to be replayable since the idea is that you try to beat your last round. So why is it that Treyarch wants to make each replay as unpleasant and tedious as possible? Another shitty thing about this map is Widow's Wine. Basically, the perk machine doesn't appear on this map this time around, and instead you have to get it from the Wunterfizz. Had the perk not been on the map at all, I'd be fine with this. But the fact that you're able to get it is what shits everything up. If you don't know, the Wunterfizz acts as a mystery box for perk bottles. So in the same way that you spin the box for wonder weapons, I now have to spin the fucking Wunterfizz for Widow's Wine. There are games where I just ignore the perk entirely because it's so shit to get. Why would Treyarch do this? It worked in Der Eisendrache because all the other weapons were so powerful and the areas you could run in were open enough to where the perk wasn't that necessary. But for Garad Krovia, there's only one spot to run in, and it's the most confined place on the map. If you're not convinced that this is true, then let's talk about the dragon.
Welcome back everyone to another Zombies Top 5, where today, as requested, we'll be doing the top 5 training spots on Garad Krovia.
Number 5, the Operations Bunker. Number 4, the Operations Bunker. 3, the Operations Bunker. 2, the Operations Bunker. Number 1.
The Operations Bunker.
If any of these zombies YouTubers told you that the dragon wasn't a nuisance, they're fucking wrong. It's basically the reason most of the open areas in the map are unusable. Every time it comes, it shits fire and ruins any possible route you have. Sure, you can use the shield to counteract it, but that equates to you ruining your line of sight. The shield just comes up and takes up half your screen. You could also argue for the use of full map trains, and to that I say, I don't want to spend the next year of my life getting to round 30. If I want to get to high rounds, I'm not gonna fucking inconvenience myself to make the game boring. I want to actually progress at a reasonable pace. I can could do a full map train on every single map in Black Ops 3 and it'd be the slowest games ever. So now your usage of the map is restricted because of the dragon. Because of this, you're forced into this confined space with the machine you use to let you get to the Pack-a-Punch area. And since this is useful for playing in every run of Gorod Krovi, you're forced to leave the door that could shorten the process of getting to Pack-a-Punch open closed. So because of this stupid dragon, you're indirectly forced into running across the fucking map every time you play! I guess you could say that if you do the Easter egg, the dragon will go away forever, but that would just add even more time to your setup on the map. At that point, it'd be no better than Zetsubo no Shima. In fact, it'd be even worse. In the end, this map could have been good. It's just too bad it turned into a pile of shit before it was too late! There's not a lot to say about this map other than the fact that it's broken. And when I say broken, I don't mean that it's glitchy as fuck, even though it was on release. It also was supposed to play exactly like the older maps from the other games too. So when it comes to how it plays, it shouldn't be bad, right? I mean, almost everything was moved to the box, so I can't complain about that. Getting set up as easy as just moving to where the box does and spinning it for the guns you want. If anything, this should be everything I've ever wanted in the map. We'll answer all your concerns now. The Thundergun and Apothicon Servant break everything. Revelations is one of the easiest map I've ever played to date. It's easier than Kino der Toten, Ascension, and Buried combined. And at least in 2 of those maps you actually had to run around, but in Revelations the 2 guns I mentioned add a whole new layer of garbage. Once you upgrade both weapons and get a hold of the Ragnaroks plus the shield, you can stand in place for almost the entire game. Here's footage of me on round 80 doing exactly that. Occasionally I'll fire off the Apothicon Servant to refill my specialist weapon, but the rest is just me using my Thundergun to clean up enemies. Finally, in the long list of maps and how they override the balancing issues with Alchemical Antithesis, the fact that you can alternate between these 2 items means that you barely need to use it. And even when you do, missing the Gobblegum when you spin the gun machine is barely a setback. There's also no reason to experience other parts of the map either. After all, if you've played any of the previous games, you already have. Revelations is just a mismatch of every other map from Zombies in the past. So for those of you who've played this game before, you have a map where you really only need to stand still until round 100. As a side note, I'd like to cover these 2 wonder weapons in a bit more detail, more specifically the Thundergun. This gun could easily be dubbed a map breaker. It's so fucking good and there's almost no way to balance it unless you take away Juggernog, otherwise you become this unstoppable machine. Every map that has the Thundergun in it becomes boring because there are 0 setbacks to using it. It can insta-kill zombies on any round and immediately clears a path for you on every use. You could be stuck in a corner, use it, and get out just fine. It's so bad that I'm glad it wasn't included in any of the maps after Nocturne and Toten in Black Ops 1. Difficulty of any given map you play becomes non-existent thanks to this gun. The only reason we have it on this map is because it's a fan favorite. It's just too bad that this attempt to pander to fans on Treyarch's last map pretty much fucks it all in the ass. If it was just the Apothicon Servant, this map would have been decent. There'd still be issues of standing in a corner for majority of the game, but it could easily be offset by the weapon's low ammo count. However, the Apothicon Servant's 15 shots, with the Zeus Cannon's 28 shots, turns this map into a cakewalk. Just look at what it does to the boss zombies. On any round, the Elemental Margwas can be killed in 3 shots from the Thundergun. And the Panzers! Just look at this! Is this a fucking joke? Do you not see how all semblance of a challenge gets completely annihilated by this one addition to the game? There you go, Revolutions took 2 steps forward and 100 steps back. It was meant to conclude the storyline that's been developed for 8 years. I guess that's where all the focus for it went, because my god, it's a joke to play. What's really sad about it though is that compared to the other maps, it's actually the only one I can comfortably revisit alongside the Giant to try and go for high rounds. Sure, it's boring as fuck to play because of how easy it is, but at least it doesn't require all these shitty tasks. Even the mini generators you have to activate around the map aren't that bad. I'm perfectly willing to deal with this since you can open Juggernog at the starting area. And yeah, did I forget to mention that? The minute you turn on the first generator, you can get Jug at round 3 or 4. Hey, but we have to have the storyline, right guys? It's a good thing that's where all our focus went. God forbid these maps are fun to play. I'll be honest, I don't really feel the same way about Easter eggs and zombies as most of the community does. Now that's not to say I don't understand their appeal. I know exactly why people enjoy solving them and seeing the results of what happens next. To some extent, when these maps first came out, I shared in that excitement. The big problem with them for me was that they really didn't have much weight in actually playing the maps. Up until this game, Zombies has always presented its story with varying degrees of subtlety. In World at War, everything was presented in the form of radios. Each one would be hidden around the map, starting with Shinonuma and ending with Darius. They essentially acted as a way of telling you the backstory to these maps and what happened before your characters arrived. Then Black Ops 1 came along and, in Ascension, introduced Easter eggs that weren't just radios, but actually something the player can directly have an effect on. At this point in the series, a new standard was set and continued into the DLC following it. No longer were you the player, just a spectator of what happened in the past. Now you were the ones setting up the events to take place in the future. One thing to note about all this though was that despite your direct involvement with the story of the 4 playable characters on each map, every single Easter egg was completely optional and non-intrusive. Sure, if you listen closely you could hear side conversations between characters in later maps like Shangri-La about what to do next, but once again, those didn't have any effect on actually surviving. The overall takeaway from this is that maps were becoming divided into 2 sections, gameplay and story. Some of you may have noticed that, when I was describing the fundamentals of Zombies, I didn't include how the game would play if you're doing the Easter eggs. This is because they don't require you to play like normal. In them, you're always supposed to have the Wonder Weapon on the map. You're also required to perform a series of tasks that are out of your way as a player to accomplish the goal of progressing the story. This is where the distinction I mentioned between these 2 sections of a map come into play. So, when I was talking earlier, I wasn't referring to the aspect players inflict on themselves. Even in Black Ops 3, at no point are Easter eggs required to play any of the maps. Sure, since Black Ops 2 they become more intrusive with how they present themselves to players, but that still doesn't mean you have to do them. Now I should also clarify what I mean by Easter eggs, because they've been given a new definition for some reason with this new installment of Zombies. When I talk about Easter eggs, I'm not referring to the specialist weapons or something like building the shield. These are just integral features of the map that have just been inherited as added baggage because of how the game was designed. What I'm referring to are the large quests that result in new cutscenes / massive bits of story being rewarded to the players for performing a series of tasks central to the map. In the case of Black Ops 3, it'd be killing the Shadow Man in Shadows of Evil, killing the Keepers in Dreisendrache, killing Takeo in Zetsubo no Shima, killing Nikolai in Garad Krovi, and killing the Shadow Man again in Revelations. To reiterate, all these tasks are completely optional. At no point in the game is your survival determined by the completion of these tasks. Now that I've presented this argument, I like to follow it to its logical conclusion. The quality of these Easter eggs and their outcomes have little to no effect on the quality of the maps. When I assess whether or not Black Ops 3 had a good Zombies mode, I never factor in the Easter eggs. Yet this seems to be something the community does quite often. When ZNS came out, the community complained about how long the setup was, claiming it took around 2 hours to finally be able to start running a strat on the map. But that makes no fucking sense. The only way that'd be the case is if you did the Easter egg, which, as I mentioned earlier, is completely optional. This isn't something like the bows or the KT4 upgrade. You honestly don't need the results from the Easter egg to improve your survival compared to the tools available to you outside of it. Don't believe me? The reward for DLCs 1 through 3 is a free perkaholic, a gobblegum you can obtain after frequent spins of Dr. Monty's machine for liquid divinium. And even then, you can still budget your perks to the point where you don't even need a perkaholic in the first place. In Dreisendrache, the bows have no reload animation, and with higher ranks and weapon customization, you can add fast mags to any buyable gun in the game. So you can sacrifice perks like Speed Cola since there are other ways around it. In ZNS, you get a free perk slot for completing challenges you're required to complete anyway, so you can just fill in an added 5th perk outside of what you normally use. In Garad Krovi, you're going to be relying on the Ray Gun Mark III, the Vesper with Deadwire, and maybe a shotgun with Blast Furnace when your ray gun stops doing damage. Therefore, you really don't need double tap and can replace it with any other perk of your choosing. Or, if you want double tap, you can rely on the fast mags attachment on the 2 wall weapons you'll be using as your main source of damage past round 50, effectively trading out Speed Cola. In Revelations, you're going to be standing still for the majority of the game, and the Thunder Gun acts as an assault rifle in terms of its effect on the player's speed, so you can just use the main 4 perks and get away with it just fine. You have alternatives for almost every single map and don't always need to rely on gobblegum machines to make it to high rounds. With all of this available to you, telling me that the Easter egg is required for anything other than my own amusement it just isn't convincing. Now that I've established that, I should also clarify that it doesn't mean the Easter eggs can't be judged. I just believe that when you factor in the quality of their existence in the game, you have to judge them separately from the actual map itself. So how do they hold up? Well, for starters, I can't judge how they played because I honestly never went hunting for them and usually don't complete them on subsequent playthroughs of maps. The most I could say is that they've basically been a mixed bag for the community, especially the one on Revelations. But what I can make statements on is the stories they tell. Before I continue, let me put this disclaimer up on the screen since I'll never claim to be a complete expert on the zombie storyline. I can only give you my input based on my interpretation of what I've been shown. Anyway, let's get into it. The plot of Black Ops 3 is as follows. In Origins, Richtofen and the crew created a vessel for Dr. Maxis after he was convinced by a hallucination of Samantha, his daughter, from another universe that she was in trouble. At the end of the Easter egg, the vessel was released into the ether, and Maxis bridged the gap between the universe he came from with the universe of Black Ops 1. This bridging caused time to get all fucked and a demigod named Monty had to step in. He came up with this solution. Richtofen must find a new set of 3 test subjects who would be fit to secure the souls of the versions of themselves from Black Ops 1. Carrying out this plan results in the scene we see in The Giant where Richtofen kills his past self and begins the series of paradoxes that occur in the game. It is at this point where 1.0 Richtofen is killed, that time diverges down a new path from what it was in Black Ops 1. Every map after Shadows of Evil is a series of our main characters killing off their 1.0 selves. Now as far as the story went, I think most people in the community would agree that it started off decent and completely fucked itself over in its conclusion. For whatever reason, despite mostly making sense to those who'd followed the story for years, the ending of Zombies felt underwhelming. After digging through quotes from the game to reaffirm my suspicion, I think I can say for certain that there are 3 major reasons for the ending's failure. In fact, the minute you start asking questions pertaining to these 3 reasons, you start to see how horrendously put together this iteration of Zombies was. I won't say it's worse than how Black Ops 2 did it, because you have to actually try to be that bad. But I will say that the story being told here was way too ambitious to end over the course of 6 maps. For those of you who haven't kept up with these games, my brief summary of the plot may have just sounded like complete nonsense. Every summary video that tries to do what I did befalls the same fate. Some of them even admit that the story is so convoluted and ridiculous to follow that the average player may be lost if he or she hadn't been keeping up with it in the past. Coincidentally, the first reason this plot falls apart is also an easy way of explaining the storyline in simple terms: the multiverse. That's right, this game uses the multiverse theory as part of its story. In other words, for every successful universe our characters complete an Easter egg in, there is a universe where they failed. And for those of you who follow the story who believe that this isn't a multiverse, allow me to present the evidence. First of all, the music video for ZNS and Gorod Krovi are clear indicators that we aren't in one secluded timeline in space. In both music videos we can see shots of our main characters dying in different ways. No, these aren't cycles, there are other universes. Monty even brings up the idea himself when talking to the cast in Gorod Krovi.
You need to stop thinking in terms of originals. Old and new. It's not like that. When you look in the mirror, it's still you. If you crack that mirror, you see multiple reflections. It doesn't mean you've actually multiplied, does it?
Still not convinced? Here's a cipher of Monty referencing other universes in Revelations. He says it himself, that all the 115 had been purged from the final universe. Still not convinced? Here's a clip where Monty outright fucking says there are multiple universes.
Changey, already volatile universe, and then you shatter it with a hammer, a metaphorical hammer, and it cracks and splinters into a million other universes, all coexisting at exactly the same time.
Okay, so I think I've established now that these characters are working within the narrative of a multiverse story. And since that's the case, the universe where our characters died to their 1.0 versions must be failure states in which the outcomes of their efforts weren't successful. So how does the multiverse ruin the plot? Well, for starters, the mere existence of such a thing means that there can never be a satisfying conclusion to any of this. Our main characters can't possibly close off every last universe because there's always a failed attempt of their mission that must exist by proxy of using this storytelling technique. So it's nice and all that Revelations resulted in them stopping the Apothicons for that universe, but that's meaningless in the grand scheme of things. There should also be another universe diverging from Revelations where our main cast never beat the Shadow Man and the Apothicons continue their takeover. Therefore, the same shit where they were firing Element 115 into different parts of the universe continues. The second major reason is time paradoxes. Jason Blundell, the lead director of Zombies, decided to incorporate time travel into his story, specifically with the blood vials. You see, at the very end of Revelations, instead of disappearing, our main characters managed to exist in the new world created despite the fact that they should be gone. This creates a time paradox in which Monty has to make an exception in history. Thus, he makes them the first Primus group seen first in Black Ops 2. However, when he did this, more questions have been raised than were answered. In Origins, statues of our main characters as Primus already existed. You can even see remnants of the actual dig site in the background of the Easter egg ending to Revelations. This all implies that at the time our characters were in Origins, their future versions had already gone back to the past thanks to Monty. The problem comes in when you reduce the amount of times they did this back to the first group. We have no reason to believe that our characters lived through medieval times and ended up in Origins since they have pasts tied with the real world. In fact, confronting these pasts is what Black Ops 3 Zombies is all about. I can say that based on this, the very first Primus group must have started in Origins before they looped. So how would any of the statues or stabs come into play if the very people who used them to fight the Apothicons never existed in the first place? Another thing, if Richtofen 2.0 crossed worlds to kill his 1.0 self, wouldn't that mean that the characters would have never ended up on the moon in the first place? After all, this game shows us what would have happened if Black Ops 1 never happened. However, doesn't that mean Origins would have never happened either? Monty never stepped in until after Max's 2.0 was sent into the ether.
The vessel you constructed for him back in World War I somehow shielded him from the influence of Element 115. He opened the portal between the worlds and, well, that's where, when shit really went tits up. The world within the world got turned upside down and inside out, if you can imagine such a thing. So, anyway, it was around then that I was forced to step in.
So whatever caused those events to happen must have come from the 1.0 storyline. But as we've just established, that shit never happened. Samantha wasn't even sent in the MPD, so we know she never controlled the zombies. Both her and Maxis were said to have been sent into the house. So if no one had any access to the 2.0 universe, how exactly did it all start? I don't understand why Jason Blundell chose to do this with his story. Time travel plots always become total clusterfucks when they try to resolve their conflicts by looping. They're also the least exciting way to end a story ever. When used, the resulting conclusions work technically, but not in such a way where the effects are immediately felt by the audience. Your satisfaction in Revelation's ending comes only when you understand what this loop managed to fix in the first place. Otherwise, you're just gonna leave what should have been a climactic finality into this completely confusing mess. Blundell tried to circumvent this by having some kind of enemy you can fight like the Shadow Man, which for all intents and purposes should have been fine. It just doesn't help that you can kill him in under a minute. The final reason this ending ate a pile of ass was because of Monty. Monty is just this laundry list of problems that suddenly appeared in the story in DLC 3. His presence from the beginning of Black Ops 3 until that point was very ambiguous. You didn't know who he was or what purpose he served until the end of the story. The minute I found out about his role and everything, I immediately had a shitload of questions. Apparently Monty is responsible for the mystery box, power drops, and presumably the perks.
All I can really do is give things a little nudge. Sow a seed, plant an idea, see what grows, see what sticks. Where do you think all these magic weapon boxes come from? The chalk drawings on the wall, the magic ammo drops, the gumball machines? Do I need to go on, or do you get the message?
He says that the reasons he gave them to the original cast was to nudge them in the right direction, but it's never made clear what the right direction was supposed to be. What exactly was the end goal for them? At no point during Black Ops 1 did the characters encounter any Apothicons. After all, they weren't conceived of as a storytelling element until Black Ops 2. So do tell what the fuck the actual plan was here. Not only that, but it's also weird how we decide what weapons to give the players in earlier maps. For example, if he gave us the mystery box and power-ups, why wouldn't he just give the players exactly what they needed every time they spawned the box? Was it just not powerful enough? Wouldn't it have been extremely useful to just spam nukes, max ammos, and wonder weapons to get the player from point A to point B relatively quickly? Why not just deck them out with a bunch of cool shit? And don't give me that free will nonsense either. In a game of 4 players, every single person can get the ray gun and monkeys. This leads me to believe that he's more than capable of duplicating certain weapons, and more than willing to do so. So why not give every player the ability to have 4 wonder weapons from the box at once? What was stopping him from doing that when he can give you all this other OP shit? Is the fact that it's all random supposed to balance it out? I understand how that'd work with the box, but what about the power-ups? Isn't that directly interfering with the course of the game by dropping all this shit in the first place? Or does Monty try to pass that off as a coincidence since it all comes from him and he wants the characters to think they had a choice here? If you're willing to directly fuck their free will, what the hell is the point in having it in the first place? He just abandons it all when the Black Ops 3 timeline starts. What's even worse is that he did it because the characters supposedly broke the universe if we use the mirror analogy Monty gave earlier. But why couldn't the new universe the main characters broke exist as its own universe? Why was that possibility never considered? And again, with this stupid multiverse shit, why isn't it possible Origins was a universe? There's one timeline where Richtofen wasn't convinced to bring Maxis and another where he was. Also, remember earlier when I said that Maxis broke time at the end of the Easter egg? All this shit happened before that. In other words, there had to have been a universe before the scratch in time. Why is the fate of the entire world dependent on these characters from one universe interacting with another when there's most likely thousands of other universes where that didn't happen? If Black Ops 1 was its own secluded timeline, then it could easily act as another universe on its own. Either Monty's lying to us about imposing some kind of free will so he could revoke it for this timeline, or he's just an idiot. That's still not the end of it though. In regards to the perk machines, how come Monty deliberately places perks out of reach from the player, especially perks that are key to his/her survival? In every map from Transit to Buried, PhD Flopper isn't buyable or accessible by the player. And don't bring up those fucking perma perks. If you're willing to even place the goddamn perk machine on Black Ops 1 maps, what excuse do you have to suddenly remove it in favor of something that goes away if you made a bad jump? This also applies to the fact that, in Black Ops 3, the perk was turned into a gobblegum. Again, if you're so willing to fucking put the perk in other maps, why suddenly revoke it and leave it up to chance whether you get it or not? Didn't you want them moving in the right direction? Why restrict them for no reason? And even if we place all those points aside, there are even more issues. At the end of Garage Crovy and throughout Revelations, suspicion from both the Shadowman and the main cast was thrown onto Monty as if he was conspiring in the background. But why have him try to make anything morally ambiguous at all? Why introduce all this bullshit tension one DLC before the last map in the storyline? There aren't even multiple endings to the Easter egg for Revelations either, which means all this doubtful garbage amounted to was dumb fluff and pointless bullshit. Another weird choice they made was having the fucking Shadow Man, a guy who starts off the map by ripping it to shreds and causing an apocalypse, trying to win over the main cast by talking shit about Monty. What fucking reason do we have to trust him? The guy is raping timelines left and right and he wants some kind of sympathy? What the fuck? None of this makes any sense! Black Ops 3 Zombies story is just this underwhelming mess with a clusterfuck of ideas that were too ambitious to be introduced this late in the series. It relies on bullshit time paradoxes, a broken rendition of the multiverse theory, and finally introducing a character out of thin air alongside a shit show of a backstory shoveled at you over the course of only 1.5 maps. And you want to know what's the worst thing about all this is? This story, no matter how fucked it is, still manages to be better than Black Ops 2.
But at least we'll be sure.
Sure of what exactly?
I don't know.
His memory's going again.
I've been a bit harsh on this game's flaws in this review, and really I think it'd be fair to say that I don't hate this game mode. It's really not that bad. There were definitely huge improvements added to this iteration of Zombies that I never properly went over. The ranking system getting an overhaul was easily one of Treyarch's smartest ideas as far as fixing what was added in Black Ops 2. Finally, I had a reason to keep playing that wasn't just to get shotguns and never touch it again. The game also does a lot more with its characters than it did in games prior. If Lundell wanted to develop these characters Jimmy Zielinski created into something more than just a few ethnic stereotypes, then I think he definitely did a great job. There's also the reintroduction of custom zombies into the game, making them way easier to download than they ever were in World at War. I just wish that these steps forward characterized the rest of Black Ops 3 Zombies. From Shadows of Evil to Revelations, each map finds a way to fuck over my experience playing them. They're so dense with these convoluted tasks that eat up every run that it's come to a point where I don't enjoy going back to almost any of them anymore. At most, I can say I like the Giant, but that's it. However, they all play like trash. The game's story was so extremely fucked too. It became so overly complicated and inconsistent that it's sad to see the series end off like this. Overall, it was just this rushed mess that tried to do something it should have spent more time preparing for. If there's one thing I hope this video serves to do, is at least bring up new talking points in this community. Instead of a shitty video about watching AAA for tutorials and the glory of the transit bus, I think it's important to focus on where the game started and where it is now. And please, for the love of God, stop bringing up the Easter eggs in almost every discussion of the map's quality. They have little to no effect on the map's replayability unless you want a fucking achievement. Otherwise, they only matter to YouTubers and streamers who want to do their 500th moon Easter egg run. Judge a map based on how it plays, not how it can give you a fun time if you do this one side quest that completely changes the pacing of the map. Anyway, I don't know how this video will be received, but I'm just glad I got this off my chest. That's all from me. I'm done.
Dab. 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 Dab.
Over the last 6 months, there has been a plague. Live streams across the nation. Demons we were summoning until it was already too late. There's a lot of people out there that still request
dabs on the daily
with hashtag fight the dab. Together we can end this.